Ever scratch your head wondering why your SDRs, your sales team, this agency just cannot find buyers who are ready to purchase? Why you keep meeting decision makers who are blaming timing for a reason not to move forward? We changed one thing in our cold calling scripts, in our emails, in our LinkedIn messages, and that tripled our conversion rates overnight. Same people executing, very different results. We stopped selling to the 5% who are ready to purchase now. In this video, you will understand exactly why this backward strategy is actually the way to go to actually fill up your pipeline with active opportunities. I see a lot of SDRs just do great work. They make the cold calls, they send emails, they do the LinkedIn prospecting, they do a lot of touch points, but the conversion rate just stays very low. Actually, it's below 1% for most of them. You might think there's an issue with your list or your SDRs just being lazy and need to push more volume. And you wouldn't be wrong, but you wouldn't be fully right either. There's a more efficient way to get more results than pushing volume in that case. The real issue is that you're only talking to 5% of your market. What you need to switch is that you need to talk to the 95% who are ready to have a conversation with you. I'm talking about is the buyer's journey. It's not just theory, it's practical. I've made the experience myself with over 60 clients. If I had a magic wand and I can make every salesperson on earth and every founder and VP of sales like yourself understand that concept, I would just wave it and have you understand it. Because this is one of the most important concepts to understand lead qualification. According to HubSpot, there are 3 stages to the buyer's journey. The first one is awareness, the second one is consideration, and the third one is decision stage. Decision stage is when you're talking to a client and you've got these webinar style demos where there are executives from across the board participating in it. Your champion is there, the CIO is there to study whether your solution is viable from a technical point of view, asking you questions about APIs and can you pass the data around. You might be doing a pilot, a paid pilot, a free pilot with success criteria and decision-making criteria. Or you might even be talking to the director of purchase and he might be hammering the hell out of you for pricing and just wondering if you're gonna get any margins by the end of it. They might be even as far as reviewing the contract with the lawyers and they start making red lines on stuff that nobody cared about before. I almost miss the ISO 27001 questionnaires with 300 lines of Excel to fill up with the IT team internally. That was absolutely lovely. So this is typically all the signs of a decision stage. I invite you are at the end of your journey. You're probably against competitors and there are the usual names on every deal. And you know how to position yourself and how to push your unique selling points to be the vendor of choice, right? What happened before, and a lot of sellers are basically not aware of it, is that the client went through what is called the consideration stage. At the consideration stage, the client had a clear idea of what the problem was, and they were wondering if software was actually the right way to solve it. Especially when we sell software, we have this impression that there's this silver bullet that's gonna solve everything. But on the other side, management teams are thinking, could we hire a consultant for this? Could we hire permanent FTE for this? Could we hire a freelancer for this? What, do we need expertise or do we need to change our processes? If we change our processes, do we need software or do we just need to rearrange how we're currently doing the work and where the responsibilities lie? There is a lot of sub-questions that a lot of sellers don't get to be a part of because they never discuss it with their clients proactively. This is happening in meetings, whether you're present or not. This conversation is happening, I can guarantee you, every single time. Then if you move one step further back, you've got the awareness stage. This is where most of the market is in. Awareness stage is where about 95% of the market is at. And at awareness, basically what's happening is the client is still defining the problem. They know they have a problem, but they need to carefully craft and define what is the problem that they have so that they can devise the right solution to permanently solve it. And a lot of people are in that state. I would argue, actually, contrary to HubSpot that you see on the screen, that there is another stage before that, which is pre-awareness, is when you call a company, they have problems, but nobody's taking the time to define them. Or it can be that nobody just took the time to define it. Couldn't we automate it? Couldn't we make it easier? Let's tie it back to your problem. When your SDRs are calling and they're saying, hey, I'm calling you about an ERP, I'm calling you about cybersecurity solution, an HR tech solution, doesn't matter what tech you're selling, you are talking as if they were part of a 5% who's already looking for such solution. You might be talking to people who are just struggling to grasp around the problem that's the 95%. And if you don't talk to those, they're going to say, no, I'm not interested. Of course, they're not interested. They never defined that they actually need it. But if you come in and you talk about the problems your solution solve, they might say, actually, that feels familiar. We do have the same problem and it's really bothering us. And you can launch into, here's what we did for other clients. They were suffering from X, Y, and Z. So do you feel the same pain, and how does it translate for you, and what's the impact for you, and who is involved and who is suffering from that pain as well? And you can deeper dive and help them define why are they suffering. And then you can assess whether they're motivated to move away from pain toward a solution. If they do, however, this is my little trick. You don't launch into a pitch to say that your software is marvelous, because even if it is, they don't know yet if they need a software to solve that problem. So you need to tie the problem to your solution, but you also need to position your solution not only against other software providers like a lot of people do. You also need to convince the person you're talking to that this is the best way to solve a problem compared to hiring a freelancer, hiring new expertise, changing the process, or anything else. They need to already be convinced at alternative stage that you're the best and only choice. Once they agree with that, you can move on to being the best software to solve a problem. And a lot of people skip the middle step. They go straight from problem to solution, and they position themselves as the best solution. And then the client disappears for 3 months because they have internal conversations to even define if they need a software. And then they come back and say, okay, we're ready. Let's have more conversations. That's why a lot of teams are basically failing to capture the buyer's attention, because we're talking solutions, we're talking features, we're talking products before the client has even determined if they have a problem worth solving with that product. And this disconnect is what I see causes the most trouble. In industries like cybersecurity, where CIOs and CISOs are bombarded with calls, I see that these technical buyers are fed up with being pushed products down their throat. And I had lunch with several of them and they said the same thing. They said, if I need your product, I will contact you, and not the other way around. Stop calling me. Because these people get 20 to 30 calls a day. They get 30 to 40 cold emails a day. And if they answered everything, they just couldn't do their job. When your team comes in and slaps them with a sales pitch, they just sound like the other 20 calls they got that day. You're not standing out. You're just sounding like a yet another vendor trying to push their products in a very selfish move, without considering what the other person needs. The other benefit is that when you're going to talk to people in consideration stage or decision stage, what's going to happen is that if you talk problems, they're going to respond to these problems because they've already defined it and they're actively looking for a solution to solve it. So you're not going to lose prospects in decision-making process when you come in about a problem, because you say, yep, we know this problem, we're working actively on the solution. What do you guys offer? You can't lose prospects by talking about problems, but you can definitely lose them talking about products, because 95% of them are not interested in products at the moment. So bottom line, lead with problems, see your results skyrocket. You're going to get into more conversation. Let your sales team during discovery calls disqualify out people who are not ready to move forward on the problem they have identified. Have them clearly define what the problem is. Have it validated that this is a problem that they want to solve. If they're not motivated, or for any reason they're not ready to solve it right now, just disqualify them and move them to a nurturing sequence and follow up on them after 3 months, after 6 months. Help the buyer move down their buyer journey by providing the right information at the right time. Make sure your salespeople understand what the buyer journey is and that they're assessing where the client is at, so they can actually tailor their pitch, their questions, and their proposition for the next step to move them along and get them closer to taking a decision toward buying your software. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about the gold mine you're probably sitting on and how you can actually generate revenue now versus later with a very simple trick that I learned in my first year in sales, and your sales team can apply right now. If you want more videos like this, or you disagree with anything I said during this video, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Just leave a comment and let's continue the conversation